Phala Phala, the criminal allegations that just keep coming up against the president time and time again. You know, the hammer used to crack the nut, because that's effectively what it has become. But before we get on to the main news story, if I can yet again remind you, 60% of the channel hasn't yet subscribed. So please subscribe, it helps, and it will help me not ask you every video to subscribe. So please do. And if you'd really like to support the work I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. And I'm really tired at the moment, so a coffee would really be appreciated. But before we get on to the main news story, just to cover a couple of news stories you might have missed. The first is, Tshwane got a new mayor, the Action SA mayor. And interestingly enough, at one of the first council sittings, the ANC had this to say about the new mayor.
That the African National Congress will support you. But if you deviate from what we requested, the same that happened to the former administration will happen to you speedily. Thank you very much.
Now you see why this is so interesting is because the ANC has already started to remind the mayor that she's only there at their good graces, and that if she doesn't basically do what they say, she can go like the last guy did. She can just get fired. That's effectively what they're implying, right? Do what we say or we'll fire you. This is really what becomes difficult when you are a minority leader, specifically a minority leader who is acting as if you are a majority leader. Now, I must admit, I'm kind of surprised that the ANC allowed Action SA to take the role, because the ANC has taken a national decision that they will not allow a minority party to run a municipality, specifically a metro. Metros are kind of important because of the size and the importance of them. But they will not allow a minority leader to run a metro unless they've got the majority, which means they wouldn't be a minority. And in this instance, in Tshwane, well, ANC got the majority. So by right, according to the ANC policy, well, they should be running it. But anyway, we shall see how the entire relationship continues to unfold. Now, at an actual press conference, the EFF had a lot to say about the Tshwane situation. Specifically, that the new mayor should be given an opportunity to service the people of Tshwane. And more interestingly enough, she says she should be a mayor for everyone, but mainly blacks and coloureds, because they've been neglected by the previous guys who were all whiteys, and they only serviced like the white suburbs and stuff. Now, you see, I read this line and I listened to the speech, and it became interesting because it reminds you that there is an ideological divide. Now, the ideological divide is basically that the DA, not that I'm sticking up for them, but they would probably say that these white suburbs, who, let's face it, there's black people that live there too, but these individuals basically are paying for services, ergo they should get them first, because it becomes a transaction. You paid for services, we should provide them. Otherwise, ultimately, every time we jack your bill up, you're probably not going to pay. And yes, that has happened in numerous metros and municipalities. So the idea would be you keep the people who are basically paying happy, and then with the surplus budget, you use it to service the underclass, the individuals who might not necessarily be paying their way for various positions. Now, you see, the ANC and the EFF tend to take a reverse position, which is that the taxes collected should be redistributed in order to have economic uplift with those who have nothing. In other words, it's forms of redistribution of wealth in order to uplift people that aren't paying for it. This is where the ideological difference comes in. And so effectively what Juju's saying is, well, use those guys' taxes because they live in luxury anyway. So use their taxes to uplift these guys, to redistribute their wealth. It's an interesting idea, and you can let me know what you think in the comment section below. But on to the next news story, which you may have missed, and that is that a poll has come out basically saying that optimism in South Africa has increased. This basically has occurred following the formation of a business-friendly coalition and the fact that we've had no power cuts for 6 months. Everybody's noticing that, right? I mean, we've actually had electricity for a while. Who knew? Anyway, 4 out of 10 people who were surveyed said that it now felt South Africa was actually on the right trajectory or the right track. However, we're saying that foreign investors are still slightly wary of South Africa. Local investment's running high, but foreign investors are still like, we don't really know how long this GNU thing's going to hold. Things like Tshwane don't really help. Now, I know I have spoken to key insiders in the DA, and they say, look, a lot of the Tshwane situation is local government and national government are very different. The GNU in the national sphere, that's very solid, nothing's going on there, everything's running hunky-dory, but the local sphere, the ANC and the DA aren't really finding each other, but that doesn't really impact national. It's just local. Now, you see, some foreign investors may find that a little bit uncomfortable because they don't really understand South Africa's politics. In fact, few do, including South Africa. But there were other factors highlighted for the increase in optimism, such as the reduction in inflation, which basically means food and all those goods are coming down. It's kind of interesting because I read the next article, the one right afterwards, that says food and all the costs of your bills are going up. I'm not really sure which it is. But in any case, petrol's come down. That's great. The rand is up 5% and the JSE has never been higher. Apparently, South Africa at the moment is actually the top performing emerging market. It's nice to be the top performing something that's not involved with crime. Even the governor of the Reserve Bank has come out and saying, look, inflation in the country is cooling. It's now 4%. In the next few months, if it remains like this or gets even better, we can have interest rate cuts, which could mean that your repayments in your bond, well, that's going to go down because your interest rate will go down. Hey, there's even been talk of a ratings upgrade. So things on the whole are looking kind of positive. But onto the main news story, and this is the really positive news, well, at least for Cyril Ramaphosa, that apparently the MPA says there is zero evidence to prosecute Ramaphosa for the Phala Phala Saga. So you may be wondering, well, why is the MPA getting involved in this? Well, this actually goes back to the original complaint raised by Arthur Fraser. So he raised a criminal complaint with SAPS around basically a cover-up of the president. He basically maintained that what the president had done is not follow proper procedure in order to notify the police following a theft. Some people speculated of what that might be, such as, interrogating witnesses, keeping people quiet, why did he hush it up, what was the real purpose of the money. And obviously for the longest time, the whole Phala Phala saga continued. You may recall that one of the things that the president was first put up for is why was he conducting private business whilst being a president of the republic? It's not meant to do those two things. It was also around the allegations of cover-up. So why was he doing that? Was the funds potentially illegal? Fraudulent, maybe? I mean, the ANC and fraudulent funds, that's never happened before. This would be the first time. But in any case, the MPA says that they've actually reviewed the case. And they said that based on the balance of the evidence presented, there would be no reasonable prospects for prosecution. They said they reviewed the strength of the case, the evidence, the reliability of the witnesses, the admissibility of the evidence, and so forth and so forth. And apparently it just wasn't a very strong case. So they're just throwing it out, basically. One is reminded that the Reserve Bank governor and the public prosecutor have also both cleared Ramaphosa, and Parliament voted not to impeach him and that there was no real case to answer underneath the last administration. Now, admittedly, underneath the last administration, the ANC had a majority and they could just force through whatever they wanted. And that, interestingly enough, is now the EFF's argument. So the EFF want to actually take the case to the Constitutional Court on the basis that Parliament or the National Executive didn't apply their constitutional duty to hold the president accountable for actions that he conducted whilst being the sitting president. The EFF actually wants to get the case reopened and a report that was originally presented to Parliament resubmitted and basically try to have another vote of no confidence against the president. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, what exactly is it that they are trying to achieve? Well, in the first instance, you can't actually make a case, as the MPA, I'm sure, has noticed, that you have broken laws when money's been stolen from you. You can't prosecute a person who had something stolen from them. There is no legal requirements in the state to ever notify the police of a theft. So from that grounds, yes, the MPA is 100% correct. You can't prosecute the president for having money stolen from him. The relevant question should be, did the president exceed the foreign exchange holding rules? In other words, did he hold more cash than he's legally allowed to? Now, that's what the head of the Reserve Bank had previously said. He had considered the case and no, the president hadn't breached any of those rules. Now, the grounds for saying that at the time were a little bit sketchy. It's like, well, it wasn't really the president's money. He was holding it on behalf of somebody else. It was all rubbish. And you may recall, if you follow the news story at the time, the president also said that he gave the money back to the person who originally gave him the money to hold because he never actually supplied that individual with the cow that supposedly he was buying. which led a lot of people to say, oh, funds didn't really seem legit then, did they? Seemed probably like you stashed a bribe in your couch, allegedly. But more interestingly enough, if you actually disregard all of that, you have to ask yourself what exactly the EFF is attempting to do here. Well, it's actually very clear. You see, the ANC no longer has a majority in Parliament. In fact, nobody does. So in order for the EFF, or MK for that matter, to actually impeach the president, they need a majority, right? They all got to vote on it. So who are they actually going to rely on to get that majority? And the answer is the DA. Because you see, the DA underneath the previous administration did vote to have an inquiry into Phala Phala to see whether there was any form of criminal wrongdoings. And so what the EFF's attempting to do is basically sow a degree of discord between the DA and the ANC. And at the end of the day, even if they don't do that, and even if the EFF say, well, we're going to side with the president, there's nothing to answer here, the EFF will just say, you're a puppet of the president now, you see? You're part of the ANC, so you're not actually the DA anymore, are you? So they'll attempt to sow discord between the DA and the public, or the DA and the president, because if they side with the EFF and say, okay, let's have this impeachment, then, well, there you go, you get a problem there with the ANC also. So either way, it's basically politicking. But the one upshot we can take from all of this is that basically the Phala Phala Saga has come to a close. Even the MPA has now shut the case. There's nothing further to be had or to be done against the president. It's pretty much done. So that being said, Ramaphosa can breathe a sigh of relief and thank his lucky stars that Phala Phala didn't end his career. Because for those of you who recall, the actual saga caused the president to resign. Yeah, he actually wanted to resign from office. He was that worried. And now it appears many years later, we've all seen all the inquiries and all the investigations are ongoing. President scot-free. Anyway, that's what's happened. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Should Ramaphosa have been held accountable for Phala Phala? I'd like to hear from you. Anyway, that's it from me. Until Monday. Bye.